All rise.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Circuit Court of the 11th Judicial Circuit in and for Dade County is now in session. The Honorable Joel H. Brown presiding. All persons having business before this court come nigh and they shall be heard. God save the United States of America and this honorable court.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this investiture of the Honorable Miguel O as a Circuit Judge of the 11th Judicial Circuit. If you would please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have some very special young guests that are going to lead us. I'd ask that will Rebecca, Anna, and Miguel O and Isabella Marko, if you'd please step up to the podium as everybody turns and faces the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good job. If you'd all please remain standing for the invocation. And we have today a close friend of the judges, Mr. Marlon Hill, will lead us in the invocation.
Good morning, Chief Judge, members of the bench, family and friends. We gathered here today on a spectacular South Florida afternoon en el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo, and all faiths that give us peace, joy, and grace in this world. Let us bow our heads and pray together. Heavenly Father, you have brought us into this world without being clothed with any robes, and remind us each day that we walk into every room or chamber with the humility to serve the common good. We pray today and give eternal thanks for the support system of family and friends of one of our favorite sons, for their loving embrace, their shoulder to lean on, their listening ear here today. We want to thank and lift up in spirit, especially Abuelitas Alicia de la O, Consuela Ruiz Diaz, Abuelitos Miguel Faustino de la O y Manuel Ruiz Diaz, Padres Mami Nereda Ruiz Diaz, Papi Miguel Emilio de la O, godparents Orestes, Rebecca, in-laws Sara, Jorge, his wife's esposa Rosa, and his kids Rebecca, Anna, Miguel. Law partners David Marko, Joel Magolnik, Daniel Layton, and all of his law firm staff, past and present, who have taken care of the small and big details each day. We also lift up in spirit his church family at St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church, and all friends and colleagues of the legal profession and beyond. Embrace each person in this chamber with your loving spirit. Heavenly Father, as Miguel begins his journey of public service, in the glory of your name, we pray that each day he will embody a sense of preparation and vigorously pursue fairness and dignity for all parties who appear before the bench. As we depart this beautiful day, in the words of the Gospel, Matthew chapter 5, verses 44 to 47, we pray that we may find a depth in our spirits to love our neighbors, friends, and enemies unconditionally through our actions as God so loved the world. For the small mercies you grant us each day and for the passion of your mystery, we all together say, Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. On this day, we have special guests that have joined us, and I'd like to recognize those. If you would all please, if you would just stand as I call your names, and if you hold your applause till the end. They're not in any particular order. It's just as they were checked in. From the Coral Gables Bar Association, current president Jane Muir. From the Cuban American Bar Association, the current president Sandra Ferrara. From the Florida Association for Women Lawyers, Miami-Dade Chapter, Linda Leali, board member. From the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Eduardo Pereira, vice president. From the Gwen S. Cherry Black Women Lawyers Association, Marva Wiley, past president. From the Miami Beach Bar Association, current president Elizabeth Schwartz. From the 3rd DCA, Chief Judge Linda Wells. 3rd DCA, Judge Thomas Logue. From the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, I think Judge Adalberto Jordan, I don't know if he got here. We have one of our senior judges, Judge Tobin. If there's anybody that I've missed, Eunice, if you'd raise your hand. I do want to recognize everyone, so if you would give Eunice your name, and let's give all of these special guests a big round of applause. Now, as always, I would like to introduce the members of our greater court family. First, we have Mr. Carlos Martinez, our public defender. On behalf of Regional Counsel, Mr. Gene Sonobi, we have Kelly Peterson, Chief Assistant Regional General Counsel. On behalf of Kathy Rundle, we have Mr. Don Horn, Chief Assistant State Attorney. And as always, our partner in whatever we do every day in the courts, Mr. Harvey Reuven, our Clerk of Courts. Ensuring that our day-to-day operations run smoothly, we have Ms. Sandy Lonergan, our Trial Court Administrator. And finally, it gives me great pleasure to introduce for the first time our new Chief Judge-elect, Bertilia Soto. Also, we have School Board member Dorothy Bendress Mindingal. Thank you all for being here today. To begin with, we're going to have remarks from the Florida Bar, and we're pleased and privileged to have a member of the Board of Governors. Please welcome an outstanding attorney in our community, Ms. Dori Foster Morales.
Good afternoon. I bring greetings this afternoon to the Honorable Chief Judge Joel Brown, all the judges of the circuit who have honored us here with your presence today, Judge De La O's family, including his wife, Rosa, of 17 years, and their 3 children, Rebecca, Anna, and Miguel, and the many friends and supporters of Judge De La O who are in the ceremonial courtroom this afternoon. My formal role today is that of the Florida Bar in my representative capacity as one of your 7 representatives from the 11th Circuit's Board of Governors. In this formal role, I bring, of course, good tidings and hearty congratulations from the bar. And, of course, from all of the 95,000 lawyers in the state of Florida, including the 14,000 lawyers in our jurisdiction. Having now provided that very formal message, those in this courtroom who know me, and there are a few, know that formality is not my strong suit. And while I know the entire Florida Bar and all its citizens are incredibly lucky to have Judge De La O ascend to the Circuit Court bench today, I think the reasons we are all so lucky should be stated based on what I personally know about Judge De La O from the over 19 years that I have known him. Hard to believe. For anyone who has litigated against me or whom I have appeared in front of, you know that I believe in preparation. Maybe some of the judges believe I overdo it a bit. But that's my nature. So of course, when I was asked to speak, I naturally wanted to prepare. And so I asked to see Judge De La O's resume, so I can include in my comments those things that are contained within the resume. However, after reviewing the judge's incredibly impressive CV and learning of his many accomplishments, I realized that these line items on his CV, in all its glory, are not truly the things that drew me personally to Judge De La O, and are only a very small part of the reason that the community is so fortunate to have him as a sitting judge. So with that, despite his remarkable achievements, I did not become friends with or believe that Miguel De La O would make a wonderful judge because of his amazing educational credentials, having attended Florida State University, graduating with high honors, having been on the law review, having been an editor of the articles section, having been the chairperson of the moot court team, nor were his impeccable and distinguished legal credentials, having gotten a job right out of law school at Steele, Hector, and Davis, going on to practice criminal defense at one of the finest criminal defense firms we've ever had, with Neal Sonnett, who's also here today to speak. And then, of course, moving on and creating his own law firm with his very best friend from high school, David Marko. Nor were his amazing trial credentials. I mean, I learned from his CV that he has tried over 40 jury trials, an impressive number of wins I hear from his partner. He's represented a wide range of clients, including an alligator. I thought that was interesting, but it's really not what I thought and what I thought of him. And of course, he's AV rated. He's constantly being named to all of those lists of great lawyers by all of those different publications, too numerous to read off. And he has been incredibly involved in the community. While I think that's terrific, having been in the Miami Fellows, he's been on the board of bar examiners and leadership roles of these positions. He was on the Civil Service Board for the City of Miami. He was on the Charter Review Commission, the Civilian Investigative Panel. I mean, incredible things for a man of his age to have participated in and to have leadership roles in. And while these line items reflect the fact that Judge De La O is smart and capable, caring and kind, community-oriented and empathetic, I'd also like to discuss some other qualities of Judge De La O that do not fit so easily on a CV, but which nevertheless assuredly demonstrate that Judge De La O has what it takes to be a great judge, based on my personal observations, again, over these last 19 years. I met Judge De La O the same way I met many of you. When I was a young prosecutor, having just relocated back to my hometown of Miami with my husband, Jimmy, we all dreamed of helping this community, our home, to be a better place. Who really knew where it would take us? My early recollections of young Judge De La O was that of a nice, warm, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Cuban-American lawyer, which never really made a lot of sense to me, who lived his life in the melting pot of Miami, who could do great things in his own little charming, humble, quiet, and self-effacing manner. Our paths crossed a lot. Judge De La O was a criminal defense lawyer, noted for being liked and trusted by prosecutors and defense lawyers alike. We were young, so to be liked and trusted by both sides of the aisle, that shows early on he had the makings of a great judge. We casually crossed ways in court. I remember those initial meetings and thought, what a nice, decent human being. Back then, before we all had kids and the stresses of big careers and running law offices, the judge, his law partner David Marko, and I, along with many wonderful lawyers in the South Florida legal community, worked out in the mornings before we went to work at the Downtown Athletic Club. There were older lawyers, younger lawyers, men, women, black, white, Hispanic, gay, straight, you name it. We worked out, we talked about everything, and it was just a great camaraderie and friendship, having nothing to do with the law, nothing to do with being important. Judge De La O, of course, was always friendly, smart, perceptive, and funny, and it doesn't hurt to have a sense of humor, to be a lawyer or a judge. While we were all building careers and involving ourselves in this community, we grew up together. It was apparent then that Judge De La O was surrounded by friends from all walks of life, as you can see here today, all communities. His friendships formed a rainbow coalition, and a rainbow painted by a colorblind judge. I also observed that Judge De La O quietly taking the reins of important organizations in an authoritative yet low-key manner and professional all the time. He was judicious in his words and actions well before becoming a formal judge. But when I reflect on what a wonderful moment this is for Judge De La O and his family, watching as Judge De La O achieves that goal he so badly wanted, I think it's important and feel the need to also thank all of the people of Miami-Dade County, and especially to our South Florida legal community. While we are big, over 2 million, with 14,000 lawyers, I truly believe that Judge De La O is a shining example of what is great about the South Florida community. Because it is a community in which a person is judged by his deeds and provided opportunities based on his past successes. So while Judge De La O did not grow up in a fancy neighborhood, nor did he come from an esteemed political family, having been raised by a single mother who in part relied on public assistance to make ends meet, these facts did not define him for our community. Instead, he has been defined by his actions. He blossomed with a public school education and thrived and achieved greatness at his state university. That's all he needed, and he was embraced. He was embraced by great lawyers like Neal Sonnett and firms like Steele Hector, cities in need of assistance, the Florida Bar, and frankly, anyone else who was lucky enough to grab some of his time and his attentions. Because that's how we are here. We're a city of immigrants made of self-made folks, all of whom seem to have a common understanding that one's brain, capacities, and actions define oneself. I'm sure that all of the lawyers and judges that Judge De La O met early on in his career, whether at the gym or on the escalator of the criminal courthouse, embraced Judge De La O as a young lawyer and supported his heartfelt desire to become a judge, because that's simply how we are in this community. I know this firsthand because so many of these same lawyers and judges who I met early on in my career have provided invaluable support to both me in my career and my husband, and have become trusted friends and confidants. Among those in that circle became Judge De La O and his partner, David Marko. So with an entire community behind him, those sparkling credentials, that twinkle in his eye and smile on his face, we all know that we can all celebrate today and enjoy watching Judge De La O fulfill his lifelong ambition to become a judge. So to Judge De La O and all honored guests, thank you for letting me speak at your investiture. And to our community, thank you for being open and judging a person like Judge De La O on his individual merits, nothing more, nothing less. For that, I believe we should all be eternally grateful. I certainly am.
Thank you. Next, on behalf of the Dade County Bar Association, we have a past president of the organization and a distinguished attorney and also a mentor to Judge De La O, Mr. Neal Sonnett. Neal?
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, Chief Judge Brown, ladies and gentlemen of the judiciary, friends, family, supporters of Miguel De La O. I'm really honored that Miguel asked me to speak at his investiture today, and I'm equally honored that the Dade County Bar Association allowed me to be their representative, since my presidency was a long time ago. Not too many people remember. Actually, Miguel, it was 5 years before you were admitted to the bar. But I've known Miguel since 1991. He was 2 years out of law school. He came to work for my former law firm. I was impressed with his personal story. I'm not going to repeat what Dori has said, but he faced hardships growing up. He paid his way through college and law school, even holding down 3 jobs at once so that he could go back to school the following semester. I was a former debater, so I was impressed with the fact that he was a nationally ranked debater in high school and in college, and a member of the moot court team at FSU. But as he began to work for us, it quickly became clear that Miguel de la O had a brilliant legal mind. He had great oral and written communication skills, so rare for such a young lawyer. And I was also impressed as he worked for us for the next 3 years with his passion for service. He wanted to volunteer. He wanted to give back to his profession. He wanted to give back to his community. And don't have time to list all of the things that he's done, but as most of you probably know, Miguel de la O has given more to this community and to his profession in the 20-some-odd years that he's been admitted to the bar than most lawyers do in a much longer career and lifetime. I've been able to follow his career closely. When he and David Marko started their own law firm in 1994, they actually remained in my suite of offices and shared space with me. And Miguel remained of counsel to my law firm until he won election to the bench. So we've had a good, close relationship, and I've watched him flourish. I looked back through my files, and I found a letter that I had written to then Governor Charlie Crist back in 2007, recommending Miguel for an appointment to the bench. Judge Crist didn't pay any attention to me, but what I said in the letter, I think, summarizes very nicely my feelings about Miguel, and I'm sure feelings that you all share. I said that he had a strong desire to serve his profession and his community as a judge, and I said he has outstanding intellectual ability and a broad knowledge and understanding of the law, and he possesses the highest standards of professionalism, ethics, honesty, and integrity, and judicial temperament to become a superb jurist. He is an extraordinary lawyer and a very special person who would be a great credit to the Miami-Dade County judiciary, and so will he be. The Dade County Bar Association has a tradition of giving a Bible to newly invested judges, so I have a Bible for you, Your Honor. And as you begin your important service to the people of Miami-Dade County, I speak for the Dade County Bar Association, and I think I speak for everybody here and the citizens of Dade County to say that we all wish you congratulations, we wish you success, and we wish you Godspeed.
Thank you. Next, before we continue, various bar associations have presented Judge De La O with plaques to commemorate this occasion. I'd like to read the names of those organizations. From the Florida Conference of Circuit Court Judges, from the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Florida Association for Women Lawyers, Cuban American Bar Association, Gwen S. Cherry Black Women Lawyers Association. We're going to continue with the first of the personal speakers on behalf of the judge and his family. Please welcome a distinguished attorney and a close friend of Judge De La O, Mr. Robert Harris. Robert.
Thank you, Chief Judge Brown, members of the judiciary, and esteemed guests. I've been asked to speak today on behalf of Sean Santini and Paul Schwepp and myself. All three of us met Miguel about 25 years ago when we were young associates at Steele, Hector, and Davis, and we've remained very close friends with Miguel and Rosa and the kids. And we're truly honored to be able to say a few words about Miguel today. Now, Miguel, undoubtedly, this is a big day for you and your family. But the reason why Sean and Paul and I are particularly excited about today is that as good a day as it is for Miguel, it's a better day for this community. And I don't quite know if everyone appreciates, and maybe after listening to Neal and Dori, you kind of get a feel of it, but I don't know if everyone understands and appreciates just who this bench just got. You know, I first met Miguel. I was actually very excited to meet him when he first walked into Steele Hector when we were just out of law school. We were 25 years old. We had just law school grads, and we're embarking on our professional career, and Miguel comes in with a briefcase, and our offices were assigned right next to each other. He's got a briefcase, I've got a briefcase. He's got glasses, I've got glasses. and we look like we're 12 years old. And I was just really happy because I wasn't the only one who had to go through the early career steal, being called Doogie Howser. And I just really appreciate you bearing that burden with me today. But really, the reason why we mention our early days at Steel Hector and why Paul and Sean and I want to talk about it was, it truly was, we were blessed for the opportunity to work there. It was a great firm. It was one of the top firms in the city and one of the top firms in the States, actually. And there were some very bright and talented and gifted people there. And it became obvious in the first couple of years when we were there, among the partners, the senior associates, and the junior associates, that there were a select few, just a few, who were different from everybody else. They were special. And what I mean by that is they were smarter than everybody. And you knew it, everybody knew it, and they were better attorneys than you could ever dream to be. So we used to call them the superstars. Now, they didn't know that, but that's what we talked about them. And everyone knew they were destined for great things, and we were all hoping, truly, that they'd sit on the bench one day, because that's what would have been good for all of us. Now, a couple of them are actually federal judges today. Another one is actually sitting right there. That's one of the superstars of really, at that time, which was some of the best group of talent that was there. But the reason why we're excited is not just because you got a really smart judge on your bench. There's a lot of smart people on this bench. The reason why we're truly excited about Miguel is the person who he is. You know, when you accomplish as much as Miguel has in his life, and you have the intellect he has, typically it comes with a huge ego. But Miguel doesn't have an ego. There's not an ego in him. And, you know, he's won a lot of awards in his life. He's won a lot of big cases. And a lot of people have acknowledged a lot of great things he's done for other people less fortunate than him. But you'll never hear it from Miguel. Usually what happens is you'll find out about it a couple days after the fact, or maybe a couple weeks later, and you'll get together with Miguel, and you'll say, Miguel, congratulations, that's fantastic. I didn't know. And you'll say, Miguel, I'm your close friend, why don't you tell me? And he'll just smile and shrug his shoulders, and he won't say anything, because it's just not his nature. That's just not who he is. You know, I bet the first time you heard some of the things about Miguel's background and what he overcame to get to where he is was probably maybe when Neal mentioned it and Dori mentioned some things. And I don't have to repeat it. You know, Miguel's mom, in addition to being a single mother, she didn't speak English. Miguel taught himself English, but he overcame all that, and as they said, put himself through school and law school. And if you asked anyone, any odds maker, what are the chances that Miguel is going to be sitting right there and we're all going to be gathered around him today and celebrating him, it'd be slim to none. But you've never heard that from Miguel. He doesn't talk about what he's overcome. He just doesn't promote himself. You know, another thing about Miguel, and Paul mentions constantly, you know, as you travel through life, usually you come across one person. Rarely will it be two in your life. But it's usually that one person who you meet, who everyone's gotten to know, and everyone loves, and not a single person can say a negative thing about that person. For Paul and Sean and me, that person in our life is Miguel. As Paul likes to say, you know, he goes both ways. As Paul has reminded us many times, there's not a mean bone in that guy's body. You know, we all try to live a good life. As Paul says, we all try to live by the golden rule and treat other people the way we want to be treated. And we fall short all the time on a daily basis. He lives it. He epitomizes it. And when you see someone like that, so decent, and overcoming what he's overcome, to be rewarded like this, you celebrate. It really restores your faith in mankind. And I'll close with one other thing, observation from Sean Santini. Sean likes to talk about Miguel's wide net of friends. And, you know, we were at Miguel's mom's funeral a couple years ago at the viewing, and people would come to pay their respects for Miguel's mom and just friends to support him. And Sean said, guys, just observe. Take it all in. Take a look at all these people who are friends with Miguel, who came to support him. It's this wide array of people from all different walks of life and all different points of view. Miguel has friends who are prominent who aren't prominent. He has friends who have no money and who've been blessed to have some money. He has friends from all different races, ethnicities, all different faiths. And in this particular, political partisan times, from all different spectrums of the aspects of the political spectrum. But that's just who Miguel is, because they all love him, because he respects people, and he sees the good in everybody. So I'll sit down with this. It's the final words that Paul, Sean, and I all said to each other when we found out that Miguel had finally become a judge. We got the news, we got on a conference call, we were so excited for him, and we all said at the same time, we said, wow, what a great day for this community. Miguel, congratulations, we're proud of you, and God bless you.
Thank you. For further remarks on behalf of the judge and his family, another outstanding attorney and a close personal friend, David Marko.
Chief Judge Brown, Judge De La O, Your Honors, friends, as the burden falls to me as the last speaker before Judge De La O takes the oath of office and is allowed to make closing remarks, I would like to ask the Chief Judge to reserve 2 minutes of my time for rebuttal. So I really enjoyed hearing folks fet Miguel for his unlikely rise, his incredible talent, his eloquence, his brilliance. And so in light of that, and in the great tradition of that, I would like to continue by offering my comments today as his oldest friend speaking today. I want to barbecue him. I've lived with Miguel since I was a little boy. He moved into our house, and so I've had an opportunity growing up with him that I think I can offer some comments that some of you may not know. I've learned a lot about him, and I've learned a lot from him. First, I learned that you can sign up for the Columbia House Music Club as many times as you like and never pay for any albums. They're free. So, I'm still getting collection calls. I don't know Miguel De La O. It's okay. We were 15 and the statute of limitations ran long ago. They'll never get us. Second, Miguel carried a briefcase in high school. The statute of limitations never runs on that. What was in that thing anyway? It's like launch codes, I guess. Third, starting our law firm in '94 was not our first business together. Oh, no, not at all. We failed at our first business. We were debaters in college. It's the way we paid for it in the off season. We came up with the brilliant idea of starting our own debate briefs company, which is where you prepare debate briefs for lazy other debaters around the country who buy them from you and think they're making arguments. They're a lot like stock legal briefs, except they're written by children and they tend to make more sense. It's off-season money. So we started rolling in the money. Within 2 weeks, I think we had made $1,000. It was real money to us. And so Miguel, very excited about that, began to deposit that money in his personal bank account until about a week later he got a letter from the IRS saying, why are you making lots of very small deposits in your personal bank account? So Miguel did the only thing, he did the right thing. He ran to SunTrust, he closed the account, he burned everything. He burned all the papers, he tinted his windows, and we never talked about it again. The IRS never called. Third, some of you may know that Miguel has a short but very storied history as a leader of a civil disobedience campaign. While in college, some imbecile pulled the alarm 3 times in the dormitory during exam week when it was freezing cold so that everybody had to file outside. And this third time, it happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. And of course, the students were very upset about it, and Miguel sensed the people. And so he led a battalion of about 100 folks and said, let's go sit inside the lobby where it's warm so at least we can rest. And shortly thereafter, a law enforcement officer showed up and said, you need to leave. To which Miguel looked at the crew and said, "If we sit down, he can't arrest all of us." And the police officer correctly said, "Yes, but I can arrest you." That was Miguel's earliest lesson in the power of one. Fifth, Miguel de la O is the most competitive human being I have ever met. It's astonishing. We're young kids, we're about 20 years old, and he loved video games, and he still does today, but back then they had them in arcades, and so he would drag me along or I'd follow because I had nothing better to do. And there was a time where this new game came out called John Elway, where several people could play football together on these video games. And there was this young boy there that day, and he must have been about 10 or 12 years old, and he and Miguel went on for an hour. It battled back and forth, and finally Miguel, with his great skills, which have been explained today, and his abilities, overcame this little 10 or 12-year-old boy's abilities. And as he defeated this kid who was staring down at his shoes, I'll never forget it, Miguel walked up to him and drove his finger in the direction of this little boy and said, "I kicked your ass, punk." It makes you want to root against him. Sixth, I'm sorry, brother. Briefs, not boxers. Don't be so uptight. Seventh, Miguel buys suits on eBay. No, used suits on eBay. And as I've learned today, having an opportunity to speak to him briefly and his purchasing agent, apparently they also sell used judicial robes on eBay. At least he's conservative. Eighth, Miguel has a well-guarded inner macho. I've only seen it really one time that I can think of, and it associated it with the one time that I've ever seen Miguel where he's had just a little bit too much to drink. We were on vacation with our wives about 12 years ago in the north of France, and it was New Year's, and we were in a small town called Deauville, which is famous for its casinos. And so we had a good time. There was free liquor. We were in the casino for a little while, and as we were leaving, a man opened the door for Rosa, Miguel's wife. So Miguel really got upset about that. He thought he was hitting on his wife. So Miguel started to give him some trouble until I pulled him back and explained he was the doorman. He thought that she had a thing for guys with uniforms. In any event, we walked around the town. It was pretty funny, where he learned how to speak the two phrases in French that I had the chance to teach him, bon année, bon santé, to the point where people were just rolling their eyes thinking he was crazy, and I explained that he was ever since Normandy. If you really, 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 really want to get under Miguel's skin, call him Mike. He hates it. It's Miguel. Our partner Joel never figured that out, who's really taken it to another level, calls him Mickey. What is it with that anyway? I never figured that out. Right. So last. Miguel is a computer geek and a notorious word economist, and he has married those two through the perfection of the internet and email. So I did a search of his emails for the last 3 months, and I found 1,000+ emails that contained one-word responses. Yes, no, maybe, thanks, NP, good, bad, okay, and foobar. I then decided I was going to see if there were any 2-word responses from him, and I was surprised, and I was not surprised at all to see that in response to his wife, Rosa, on several emails, I saw the words, love you. And then I decided to get a little more creative, and then I looked up emails between me and Miguel where my search term was, my question, can we have another dividend? And he had 2-word responses to that. They're very similar to the one that he gave to Rosa. It was 2 words, and it ended with you. Finally, allow me a few serious words. My mother, and I'm not sure she was able to my mother's here. In fact, really our mother. She has a flu. You're here, Mommy. She's fine. Anyway, I asked her what she wanted me to say to you, Miguel, on behalf of her, and this was her message. I never stop believing in you. So in conclusion, let me give Miguel my best advice as he undertakes his great career to come, sharing the burden of sitting in judgment of others with your honors. As the scripture teaches us, do justice, love mercy, be humble. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Thank you. Next, for the oath of office, it's my pleasure to introduce one of our colleagues, Judge Tom Rebull, and if the family of Judge Dela O would join him at the podium for the robing and the swearing in.
Do it, I just want to say to Miguel, thank you for giving me the chance to swear in a real life hero. I, Miguel Manuel de la O,
I, Miguel Manuel de la O,
do solemnly swear
swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States of America
the Constitution and government of the United States of America
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am qualified to hold office
that I am qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state of Florida,
under the Constitution of the state of Florida,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
and that I will well and faithfully perform
Judge of the Circuit Court
the duties of Judge of the Circuit Court
of the 11th Judicial Circuit of the state of Florida,
of the 11th Judicial Circuit of the state of Florida,
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
My pleasure to introduce our newest Circuit Court Judge, Judge Miguel de la O.
For the record, the suit is eBay and the tie was Goodwill. That was one true comment, David. Chief Judge Brown, friends, family, and my most honorable brethren, I call you my brethren with much trepidation. To paraphrase Groucho Marx, I question the judgment of a judiciary that has so readily accepted me as its member. I have spent half of my life practicing law, and I have appeared before nearly most of the judges who are here today. I have always greatly respected our judiciary, and my respect has grown exponentially in the short time that I've been on the bench as I more fully appreciate the job you do. The judges here today honor me with your presence. It is a bit overwhelming sitting here next to the Chief Judge listening to my eulogy. No offense, Dave, but I always secretly hoped I would outlive you so I could deliver yours. And it is difficult to feel worthy of the attention and of the comments. And I know that may sound like false modesty, but it is not. No matter my position and no matter my title, I always see myself as that skinny little boy playing on the streets of Little Havana, the one who always smelled of royal violet cologne. Violeta, as my mother called it, She put it on every day. She believed it would keep my hair blonde forever. I think of myself as the little boy who started school not knowing a word of English, and I was so embarrassed that day when my classmates laughed because the kindergarten teacher asked me to turn off the lights, but I went and closed the windows instead. And I'm still the boy who hated to accompany my mother to the grocery store, fearful that a friend might see us paying for our groceries with food stamps. And as I grew older and we moved to Allapattah, my fear was no longer just the irrational shame of poverty, but the very real danger that lurked in those streets, and not all my classmates made it out. Survivors of tragedy often wonder why they are spared, why they live when others do not. I do not wonder why I'm standing before you here today as a judge. I know why, and it has nothing to do with having a greater purpose, and it is not because I am special. I am not special. I am lucky. And my kids are probably wondering, who is that man and what have you done with her father? Because I preach constantly that there is no such thing as luck, that we make our own luck. But I am lucky. I am lucky that so many people took an interest in me, people who recognized my needs and invested in my success. And at the risk of turning this speech into one of those dreadful Oscar acceptance speeches, I have to honor those people who made that possible. First, however, let me acknowledge all of you who, as taxpayers, provided a safety net that kept me fed and clothed and educated and healthy until I could do it for myself. If there is one overriding motivation in my quest to serve this community as a judge, it is my recognition that I owe this country, this state, and this city so much, and I want to pay it forward. When you hear politicians diminish our fellow citizens who subsist by virtue of our country's safety net as takers rather than givers, please remember that a person does not have to be one or the other all of their lives. We takers can contribute if we're given the chance to survive and prosper. I literally do not know where to begin to acknowledge the people in my life. In judges school, I learned that I am an ISTJ on the Myers-Briggs personality test. All you need to know about that is that means I favor structure and order, so naturally I will go chronologically. But I also like to think outside the box, so it is mostly chronological. In the beginning, it was only my mother and me, and what can I say about the woman who, from the time I was 6 months old, raised me alone, who sacrificed so much of her own life, her own dreams, to keep me safe and on the right path. I can only tell you what I told her once when I was much older and the father of 3 children. I admitted that I truly never appreciated her efforts and sacrifices until I was a parent. And the fact that Rosa shoulders the majority of the responsibility for our children makes my parenting efforts minuscule compared to what my mother went through raising me and later my sisters, Barbara and Consuelo. We can never repay the effort that our parents the effort and sacrifice that our parents make for us, except by seeing their hopes and their dreams come true. And I hope that she is smiling down on me today because she deserves to see this day. I have had 3 mothers in my life: Nereida, my biological mother; David Marko's mother, Madeline Ferguson; and my godmother, Rebecca Romero. I've only had one father, and that's my godfather, Orestes Romero. Rebecca and Orestes never treated me as anything but their own child. They are my parenting role models, and frankly, if Rosa and I can be half the parents that the Romeros are, our children will be very lucky indeed. The Romeros have raised 5 of the best adjusted, kindest children any family can hope for, and I am proud to call them my brothers and sisters. In the moments when my mother faltered, when the burdens became too great, it was the Romeros that took me in. And as I grew older, it was Madeline Ferguson that took me in when I needed shelter. She has also always treated me not just as one of her children, but as her favorite child. Although I suspect she says that to all 3 of us. I love you all dearly, and this is your accomplishment also. Many teachers also deserve credit for today, but one stands out. In 1979, I enrolled at Miami-Jackson Senior High. I already knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and therefore I wanted to be on the debate team. What I didn't know was Jackson didn't have a debate team. As Rick says in Casablanca, I was misinformed. But what I also didn't know is that a new teacher had joined the faculty that summer, a speech and debate teacher. I vividly remember that first morning. I walked into his class, I sat down, and directly in front of me was this ginormous man-child who was the starting running back for Jackson. His name was Joe McCall. And behind me was my lifelong friend since elementary school, Jose Benitez. And at the front of the class was this dignified, tall man with perfect diction, Merle Ullery. And Merle has done me the honor of being in the box today. Mr. Ullery's decision to leave the comforts of Kansas and come to the inner city of Miami to save the world opened up my world. Because of him, I debated for 7 years in high school and in college, and I traveled the United States extensively, even having the opportunity to represent the United States in an international debate exhibition in Montreal. More importantly, I learned that we can persuade others about the righteousness of our cause when we lead by example. The very next year, I met David Marko in the same speech and debate room. We ended up attending high school, college, and law school together. We started a law firm and practiced law together for 19 years. He is my consigliere, and he is my brother. He and Rosa are my two better halves. Meeting David was the single most transformative event in my life, because through him, I eventually met Rosa, and our mother, Madeline, and his aunt Linda, and his uncle Bill, may he rest in peace, and his sister Katie, who is now my JA, but who was my secretary for 18 years before this. If David and Rosa are my two better halves, Katie is my better brain. She remembers not just what I don't, but the things I never knew. I met his brother Michael, who's now my bailiff, who I've now discovered has the supernatural power to make people rise before I even enter the room. And his other brother Charles, who's one of my former associates, and with them I created a second family. It is said you can choose your friends but not your family, and that is not true. I chose, and I was chosen by them to create a family, and I am forever grateful for their love and their guidance. After graduating law school, I had an unfortunate miscommunication which left me without a job. Despite the fact that I had previously turned down an offer from Steele, Hector, and Davis, Joe Clark re-extended the offer. Even though their incoming class of new associates was already full, I can only imagine how many arms he had to twist to get that done. But I am forever grateful for Joe's efforts, if for no other reason for the fact that I would never have made 4 lifelong friends. My first day at Steele, Hector, I met the not yet honorable John Sherstrom, who we call Johnny Shoes, Robert Bobby Harris, who you've already heard from, Sean Santini, who is an Irish Boricua, and Paul Schwip, who is a Cuban Swede. Quite the motley crew. We have celebrated childbirths and marriages. We have mourned deaths and divorces. We have shared our lives, and I am a far better person for having met each of you. In 1991, I joined Sonnett, Sale & Cuny to pursue my passion for criminal law, and I had the opportunity to learn my craft from Neal Sonnett and David Tucker, who have continued to serve as my mentors. And the fact, Neal, that you allowed David and I to list you as of counsel to our firm from the beginning was a great source of pride for us. He lent us prestige far in excess of anything we deserved. I left Neal's firm to form the law firm with David, and later it came to include Dan Layton and Joel McGolnick. The 3 of them unselfishly allowed me to pursue my dream of becoming a judge. I am well aware of how much easier my route to the bench was than my colleagues who were in solo practice or who had to leave government jobs to run for election. I'm not sure I could have achieved my goal without your help. Thank you. In practice, I had many types of clients, and I even liked most of them. But 2 clients hold a special place in my heart. Edward Resnick, may he rest in peace, and Phyllis Resnick, who is here today in the front row. Besides the fact that they are selfless in their pursuit of access for the disabled, they allowed me to do well by doing good, and I was proud to represent them. Thank you. After I started my firm with David, he introduced us to our banker, Rosa Valilla. She was, and remains, out of my league. There was no way I was going to ask her out. So David set up a lunch for the 3 of us, and that lunch only served to confirm that she was way out of my league. Thankfully, she disagreed, and so she invited me to lunch and told me to leave Dave home. The rest is history. 16 years and 3 kids later, we're still in love, and I am thankful for the day that she asked me out. You've met Rebecca, Anna, and Miguel, and you can see what a lucky man I am. If anyone fears that this robe might go to my head, I assure you my children will never allow it. They take pleasure in reminding me the number of times that the governor chose not to appoint me. And have taken the position that I was not legitimately elected because I did not appear on the ballot, and no one has ever voted for me. When I walk into the dining room and I say, all rise, they roll their eyes and they ignore me. And no matter how weighty a ruling I may issue during the day, I have to walk Rebecca's dog twice a day. 3 hard-to-impress kids and a dog are the perfect recipe for keeping the judicial ego in check. In 1999, the Kellogg Foundation and the Miami-Dade Foundation began a leadership training program in Dade County, and I was fortunate to be selected one of those first 18 members. I made some wonderful friends there, many of whom are here today, including Marlon Hill. Marlon, thank you for that invocation. And Dori, thank you for your words. When I decided to run for this position in 2009, the first person I called for help was Ruby Faria. Ruby, thank you for your encouragement and your loyalty and your unyielding efforts on my behalf. The second time around, I also asked for Bob Levy's help. Bob is a gentleman and loyal to a fault. I am proud and lucky to have him in my corner. I've been on the bench only 3 weeks, but from that first morning, I felt the change. I immediately saw the difference in how people treated me. People assume I know what I am doing simply because I sit on a bench and I dress in black. The respect that the robe bestows on its wearer is considerable, but it is superficial. This robe gives power, but it does not convey knowledge or wisdom. And to paraphrase John Houseman in the old Smith Barney commercial, you gain knowledge and wisdom the old-fashioned way. You have to earn it. So it is my sincere hope that I attain sufficient knowledge and wisdom through hard work and effort, one case at a time, so that someday my brethren and the parties and lawyers who appear before me will agree that I have finally earned the respect that this robe has bestowed on me today. Thank you for sharing this day with me and my family.
Judge Della O, it's truly my pleasure to welcome you to our court family. Throughout your career in private practice, you established yourself as someone who was always devoted to the law and the highest standards of professionalism. I know you will be an asset to our bench, and we are very fortunate to have you join us. Welcome aboard. Very good. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be in adjournment. You can greet the judge and his family to the side of the podium. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend. We're in adjournment. That was really good. Especially